Hi, welcome to the Livelong Podcast, where we believe your health is your power. My name is Erin, and I am the editorial director here at Livelong Media, and I'm very excited to welcome Iasmine Abdennabi to the podcast. Iasmine is the founder of rhubarb, which is an adaptogenic and herbal supplement specifically targeted toward menopause. But today, I kind of want to lean on her degree in the history of science and medicine to help you guys understand more about how herbs and plants support healthy longevity, what plants, when they're enough, when they're not enough for longevity, specific ones we can recommend you try or research for your health, and basically getting into this idea of natural medicine. And so I'm super excited to welcome her. And she was actually at the Live Long Women's Health Summit 2 weeks ago, which feels like ages ago. So I also just wanted to ask you, how was your experience at the summit? Like, what did you take away from it?
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me here. The event was really incredible, much more than I even anticipated, because it put me in touch with so many women of different backgrounds, different professional backgrounds and interests. But one thing was for sure, most women were interested in how to make this awesome life of ours a healthy life for the long run. And I got a lot of different perspectives. And it was really useful. I came away with a ton of insights and connections. I wish that something like that was more available and came around more often, actually. Yeah.
Do too. I love talking to people, and I just met the most fascinating human beings. What more can you ask for? Honestly, with longevity, I think connections, I think we always go back to connections matter. And so I'm glad you kind of took that away too, because that's certainly what we hoped people would experience. And we're just super stoked for whatever comes next in our next event. But coming to your background, which is pretty fascinating. So you studied the history of science and medicine. So what about the idea of old or herbal medicines still apply today in this sort of AI technology diagnostic driven era?
Very interesting question. Yes. So I studied history of science and medicine because it had everything to do with my personal background, having grown up in South America, being very close to plants in my environment down there. And so in college, I wanted that continuum. And I also had always been a person who's interested in justice and equity and how to combine what I knew with scientific studies around plants. So it started early for me, and then this was like in I got that degree in 1990. So that was a long time ago. And so I see it as full circle, having, created Aruba is part of that. And everything that I learned there is kind of boomerang now. And it's a very cool thing for me. It's very rewarding to see my studies paying off, if you will.
So, okay, if you don't mind me asking, what part of South America are you from, and what were some of the herbs and remedies and things you grew up using that told you, wow, this works?
Yes, thank you. I am from the southernmost part of Brazil. It's called Rio Grande do Sul, and I'm from the big town of Porto Alegre. But we spent a lot of time in the farmland, basically nearby, and there are lots of wildflowers that were available, berries that simply don't exist here, And sometimes when we would go visit the northern part of Brazil, we would find acai, for example, which is now in Ruba. And
And
it's
it's super
no,
trendy in the health world. Everyone's like, "Oh, acai is a superfood." So you knew about the original before it became super.
exactly, exactly. So I know the benefits of that, and I knew that I wanted to include a lot of what was available to me then. And then Ruba grew out of further research specific to menopause. So everything in Ruba is tied to how to relieve menopause symptoms. Yeah.
I'd have to imagine that uh, aside from alleviating menopause symptoms, though, some of these ingredients do far more for a lot of conditions. Because from my understanding, plants are it's never myopic. So I think it's really cool that your product targets menopause. And what I'm also excited to get into is how those same ingredients can be so widely applied and also why do we care about them? And one of the ones that stood out to me doing some research was red clover.
Mhm.
Now, I saw it in your product, but I did research online, and there's actually a lot of research about using it for cholesterol, heart health, like weight. So, can you talk to me a little bit about what
Yeah.
its properties are and potentially what its wide uses can be?
Oh, thank you. So red clover is part of uh, history, basically. It's been around for a long time. It's been used by native communities, and then it's been elevated, and it's very well known and very well studied for both vasomotor symptoms, which are symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats, and even mood equilibrium, which plays a role during or midlife. And so it's been studied so much, and I wanted to make sure that, okay, we've got plants, which plants have an actual dotted line to some of these symptoms. So that's how red clover came in. It's also been studied for like joint health. And so the reason why there are so many ingredients is because like menopause, it our lives and our conditions are not silos. So I wanted a holistic base approach to how I was going to make this drink. And so, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And what I want to ask you is how you how does someone who studies the history of medicine, how do you keep tabs of the encyclopedia of herbs that exist in life and choose what works for you? I think a lot of our listeners love the idea of even dabbling themselves in herbal medicines and all this stuff, but it's so vast and there's so much like research. So, can you walk people through your mindset in being able to formulate things and try herbs that are considered safe and effective and that you would trust, basically?
I love that question. Yes. So the study of like herbalism and how it's grown in our society to be accepted. And I think that now in the circle of life, I think people are looking for more plant-based solutions because they've had experiences with how perhaps one ingredient may be amazing for them, like acai, for example. Maybe women have tried that. But how do you put that together in a way that makes sense for every woman? I think that's really a challenge. And so to answer that question is we trust the science that exists today, and we keep um, developing or ingredients in our formula based on new and additional science. Um, we included several ingredients because each one of them has a different it shows up differently in how in their effects on different symptoms in midlife. So, for example, the rhubarb root that is in rhubarb is also a phytoestrogen, and phytoestrogens are plants with compounds that mimic the way that hormones react with the receptors in your body without it being a hormone. So it's completely hormone free.
Can you talk about why? Like, how?
Because nature is amazing, and there are plants in or that are available, maybe not available in regular yards, right? I don't have rhubarb root growing anywhere near me, for example, right? It's mostly an European-based ingredient, and it's been used there quite a bit by women who've tried it. And in Mongolia, I hear also has always used rhubarb root. It's called Siberian rhubarb. And so how is that there is a heritage, if you will, a tradition of using that. And after that tradition was established, researchers who in labs have studied the plant, and and now I'm bringing it to the US in the form of a beverage, a drink. So that's sort of the innovation that people like me are bringing to the marketplace to make it available for women. And that ties, and nothing that we put in or drink doesn't have that sort of connection to heritage, connection to the plant having been used before by different communities, and then being researched by food scientists and other types of scientists to bring it to where we are today.
So I'd love to talk about that idea of heritage with plants because plants have a lot of wisdom and stories behind them throughout a lot of cultures. So,
Mhm.
can you even just touch on perhaps where you grew up in southern Brazil? And there's a different, I think there's a different ethos around using certain herbs than there might be in the US historically amongst and not necessarily native communities, but the people who came to the US were more modern medicine based, I would say, the Europeans. But what was the relationship like between plants and spirituality and health and happiness for not just women, but for everyone? Is there really, there must be stories, right?
Yeah, definitely. Where I grew up in Brazil, there were a lot of fruits, a lot of berries, and so plums, for example, raspberries, blackberries, and we just I don't mean to make it sound like a jungle, but basically things grew in many areas that were just available. It was easier for communities to say, hey, children, like my mom would say, hey, children, go play. And so we would just go play in this field where there were lots of these plants and berries available. So as a person with that privilege, I grew up with it. I was able to go to a bush and pick out different berries and know the difference. And I think that also brings the ritual. I had siblings who did the same thing. And so that grows with you. Like today, when we have dinners and reunions, we always bring what we knew then to the table. So it really carries. It's a tradition that carries on with you. And I remember growing up there how ladies in the neighborhood that we lived in, or when we were out in the farming community, would bring jams and teas and leaves from the area, which were amazing, right? Like, I don't think I really value that, or I was thinking that this is going to be so valuable someday. It's just kind of what life now has made, makes you realize that that kind of upbringing is important because there's your connection to the soil, the land, the people who really matter, right? That bring out all this goodness. I just happen to be lucky that I then proceeded to go study that in college, right, at university. So, and it's very rewarding for me because it kind of puts all the pieces together. Yeah.
Are when you were at uni and beyond, were there any types of folk remedies or herbs or anything that surprised you for how healthy and how potentially um good it could be for longevity and aging purposes?
Yeah, for sure. The antioxidant properties in a lot of the plants have um, we now know that they affect like cardiovascular systems, that they affect the energy that we have in our body, that they contain, a lot of these plants contain like natural electrolytes. And so it's really just offered in nature. And when I was at uni, we were studying different plants that made sense for people back in the Renaissance period, right? And like during, like, and so we studied Avicenna, we studied the oldies and how they started to introduce technologies in way back then to be able to help people, but a lot of those technologies and the way to like perform surgery, for example, had different plant-based medicines to curate to help the patient in the procedure. So it's yeah.
So it is that harmony between innovation and looking back to what nature provides. And that seems to be a common thread in a lot of longevity and diet research. But based on that, how how do I know? So, okay, I'll pitch something to you. Maybe we could play a little game. If I want to sleep better, right off the bat, what should I take? What herb? Is there none? Would you be like, you gotta pick and choose? Like, what would you suggest?
I think that there isn't really one silver bullet. I think it is how you um, think about your entire nutritional process and what you use for your, to as food every day. So your liquids, how much electrolytes are you putting into your body? And as you get older, you need more electrolytes than you used to earlier. So it's not just a simple glass of water, for example. Magnesium is an important ingredient in there. And so in today, I think it's very common that where more women are learning about that. In rhubarb, we have magnesium glycinate, which is helps stabilize your mood and also keeps you at night, like sleeping. There are plants that you may take for helping you go to sleep, and then there are plants that help you maintain your sleep.
Ah.
And that's really important for sleep disruption and also important for um, to maintain your body temperature, which is there are differences when you reach perimenopause and after in the temperature that your body is able to maintain. Mhm.
So what keeps your body cooler? Because I'm assuming coolness is sleep because they always recommend keeping a cool room.
Yes, yes. So hormones have a lot to do with temperature and keeping your body temperature in stabilized. And so that's I think the key for better sleep. So the plants that, to go back to your question, what plants help with that? Well, plants that have magnesium, plants that have potassium, but that's not the only thing, right? Like there are other things in life. There isn't just one product out there. I think that you've got to cover your other bases. Like, what about the fiber that's in your body that you ate during the day to help you also with temperature control? So there's that as well. The phytoestrogens that I mentioned also play a huge role. And so the lion's mane, which has been studied for cognitive stability.
And just to clarify, lion's mane is a mushroom.
Yes, it's lion's mane mushroom, and it's quite popular right now. And I wanted to bring it into our drink because, as you know, during midlife, menopause specifically, um, there's brain fog, and this cognitive diminishment. It might be temporary, but the way that people are starting to address it is through an adaptogen like lion's mane mushroom. So I immediately researched that and I started using it myself and to see if it made a difference. And then, of course, pulled all the studies, and so it's currently is a hero ingredient in Ruba as well.
So, wow. Okay, so also though, adaptogens. You said it's adaptogenic. Can you explain a little further to listeners what adaptogens do and how it can support anyone's longevity? And even so, I guess I'll call myself more of a spring chicken than someone who's a little older. But can I still benefit from adaptogens?
Yeah, sure. So adaptogens are typically found in mushrooms, right? It's a fungi. It's not a plant necessarily. So and they have these properties that are bioavailable and have been studied by and more lion's mane has for their effect on a lot of these cognitive uh, behaviors and deficiencies that we have in the way that we used to be able to think on our feet and not, etc. So adaptogens have that ability. And it can be used by anyone, not just by women in perimenopause or postmenopause. And that's the beauty of having different groups of ingredients that would help people. Of course, I formulated Ruba for women in peri and post menopause, but it doesn't mean that some of the ingredients in it wouldn't be helpful for anyone. Lion's mane is a darling in the marketplace right now, and there are more. And because it is, which is interesting, because it is, there are more studies, there are more companies interested in funding the research behind it. And I think that's really neat because the more research we have, the more we know. And for women, that's been a key issue that we need more research around the hormonal transitions that we have. And so we also, for Ruba, have made it a um, part of our philosophy, which is to always be research backed. And we are putting 2% of our profits, of course, into clinical research for issues around menopause care.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, to end things, I would love to know two things. What herbs and what plant medicines do you take to support your healthy aging and longevity? And what other things do you do for your health on a daily basis?
Oh, thank you. Well, I am an avid fan of vegetables like beetroot. I eat beets all the time. They're very available to me. I love potatoes. I love eggplant. I'm also Middle Eastern. You can tell by my name, and we eat a lot of eggplants. And cabbage is cruciferous, and all of all of these are part of Ruba, by the way. But beside that, I also go to my garden. I have a vegetable garden, a small one. And here in California, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, depending on how hot it is.
Miss, hit or miss.
Yeah. But I'm also really interested always in proteins and in making, my thing is hot meals. I always have a hot meal during the day because I think that's feeds differently than just snacks or like just having salads all day. I think that it helps me a lot. And I have definitely increased my intake of electrolytes. And currently, which is not related to Ruba, I just found out about a probiotic that, and so I'm researching like yogurt-based probiotics and combining that with my diet as well,
Right
which
on.
yeah, which I always had based on my family's cooking style used yogurts, but I recently found out that there's a lactobacillus that is not available in commercial yogurts that have a very nice effect on the body. So I'm investigating that, making my
Yeah,
own actually.
because as you probably are well aware, the gut microbiome, she's important for everything. And I
Yeah.
mean, gardening is too. The research on gardening is phenomenal. Such a what one might think is a simple thing can do so much for your brain and for your heart health. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. So I gravitate toward the things that I like to do, which tend to be active. Like I'm very active. I'm pulling branches. I'm digging part of the yard that was no longer usable for my vegetables. And I think that keeps me active. The focus on food, I think, is just going to grow, and people more than ever are realizing that that's what will make longevity, a healthy longevity, really happen for most of us. And so my goal with Ruba is to bring that out along with making menopause like a clear topic that is no longer covered by the taboos of the past, and something that Ruba can also be an enjoyable ritual for women with all these nutrients so that they can start to learn, oh, why is this ingredient here exactly, like the questions you have. And those are important for women to uh, not only to drink it or eat it, but to know why. And I think most of us are after these, are trying to ask these questions. That's
The
my
why,
hunch.
the why. I
Yeah,
think that's amazing. And thank you for sharing your perspective and your time today. Very much appreciate it.
thank you. It's very nice to have the questions you posed and to be here. It's very nice. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.